nonprofit. And we'll get started with that in a minute. Right now, I'd like to give you some information about SCORE. So my name is Anita Kayat. I am a SCORE mentor with the Cleveland office. And so SCORE is one of the, in fact, is the largest network of free small business mentors in the nation. So no matter what stage your business is, we can find you a mentor. If you have an odd type of business and we don't have somebody in the Cleveland office, we can tap into any one of those 10,000 mentors across the country and find somebody who can work with you. So it's easy enough to go to our website and request a mentor. So our mission is to foster vibrant small business communities. We do this through mentoring and education. And we hope that you as a small business owner have the resources that will help you be successful. There are probably 96% of all businesses are small businesses. So we know that small businesses drive the economy, both nationally and locally. And if you look at downtown Cleveland in the last several years, there's been a revitalization simply because small businesses have come into the area. So anyway, again, we have in the Cleveland office approximately 100 volunteers, and they are volunteers. They give freely of their time. Here is a snapshot of what we have accomplished in the past year nationally. We've helped approximately 30,000 new businesses and 150,000 new jobs. We have all types of entrepreneurs that we mentor. About 10% of our clients are veterans, and well over half of them are women. So women are starting businesses like crazy these days. So it's wonderful. This is a snapshot of our website. If you go here, you can sign up for a mentor. And when you do, I ask you to please give us as much information you can about your business so that we can match you with a mentor who has a similar background. Also, if you click here, you can look at a list of all the upcoming webinars and a list of past webinars. We record all of our webinars and we post them on our website within the next week. There are also a lot of other resources. There are business plan templates, marketing plans, articles, all kinds of things. So when you have a chance, go to the website and take a look at what's available to you. Our services are free, not only because the Small Business Administration provides some funding, but most of our funding comes from local businesses who want to help small businesses succeed. These are links to our website. And so we're going to talk about funding your nonprofit business today. So we're going to talk about some of the statistics, which I hope will help you if you're putting together a business plan. Where should you be looking for opportunities? How to identify opportunities that are relevant to your business, and some things to consider, particularly about individual donations. So if you're a nonprofit business owner, you already know that the need for fundraising is critical. So you probably need up to a half-time person to spend on this effort if you don't have the ability to charge service fees. So just like a for-profit business, if you don't have money, you're not going to stay in business. So it's really important to develop some good fundraising processes and procedures. Now, if you can possibly charge service fees, almost half of the total revenue for 501c3 organizations comes from service fees. Now, of course, that includes hospitals and other large organizations that are nonprofits, but it also includes a lot of smaller ones who have some sort of service that they can charge for. So about 25% comes from government contracts, and charitable giving accounts for about 25%. If you're a fee for service, and again, if there's any service that you provide that you can possibly charge for, you should consider it, even if many of your clients don't have a lot of money. You could use a sliding scale anywhere from 0 to whatever your costs are, at least to bring in some funding and to have a reliable funding source. So hospitals bill patients, as we all know. If you're a museums are nonprofit and they charge admission fees. Theaters, some theaters are nonprofit and they sell tickets. And civic organizations, you can charge dues if you have that type of organization. And of course, if you're a college, they charge huge amounts for tuition these days. So for an example, Girl Scout cookies, they sell in the billions of Girl Scout cookies, and they go for different aspects of the business. The cost of the cookies is only about a quarter, but the other funds are distributed to their membership support, their programs, and then their service in their individual Girl Scout activities. So one thing you can think about are various types of events. And locally here, WBIZ has an annual auction. They go out and solicit donations, and then they have open up bidding, and they make their money to give support to their programs. Many nonprofits have balls or dinners where you pay a large fee where half of it, maybe or more, goes as a donation to the nonprofit. Many nonprofits start out with 5 or 10K runs or buddy walks because the overhead cost of mounting them is relatively low. But before you do any kind of an event, one of the things you need to do critically is do a cost-benefit analysis. Even the 5K or 10K runs, if you're going to give out T-shirts, water bottles, things like that, you have to think about how much are they going to cost, and then what can I charge for participation? And the difference is going to be the contribution to your organization. But you want to make sure that you have a pretty large group of people participating, so your marketing efforts are going to be really important. So some of the funding, when you talk about direct donations, Americans gave about $500 billion in 2023. So foundation giving increased a bit, $103 billion. Corporate giving increased, and however, the largest source of charitable giving came from individuals, so representing 67% of total giving. So it's very important to think about how to raise money from individuals as opposed to foundations and corporations. Now, how are the gifts distributed? The majority of charitable dollars went to these sources: religion, human services, education, and so forth. And so if you think about where does my nonprofit fit into those groupings, you have an idea of what your opportunities are. So that, despite inflation and everything else, giving increased, and you can see significant increases. So that's good. For individual and family giving, middle income earners, charitable donation, approximately 3,000. Average charitable donor is 64 years old and older. Again, you can see these statistics. 85% of affluent households give. Younger people, if you look, the millennials are very focused on helping nonprofits. And even though they're usually in the start of their careers and not making a lot of money, they tend to be very generous in supporting their causes that they're interested in. The Pareto principle applies when it comes to giving. About 20% of your donors are going to supply you with 80% of your funds. So it's important when you start building your donor network that you identify the people who are your highest yield donors and try to focus on encouraging them to give more every year. Now, if you look at where money is coming from and how they prefer to give it, you notice in all of these cases, more than half, they prefer to donate online. And if you look at, again, the different headings, baby boomers might be the older group and maybe not so much online, but they still are willing to give online. What are they inspired by in order to give? You can see social media is pretty high on there, so you better have a great marketing campaign that includes email, social media, and definitely your website. For older people, also direct mail still works. But if you're looking at younger people, concentrate on your website and email and social media. So to get the most updated statistics for your marketing plan, this is a great source that gives you information about all kinds of donations, individual, corporate, etc. So well worth checking if you're putting together your business plan. So 50% of donors are enrolled in a recurring giving plan. So you want to make sure that your website is set up to allow people to sign up for regular giving, $10 a month, $15 a month, etc. But make sure that they have that option because it appeals to people. A small amount on a monthly basis is a lot easier to set up for them than large donations at one time. Only 9% participate in workplace giving programs. So now is a good time. There is inflation. and so forth, but the economy is still expanding. People have cash reserves, and they feel good to give and help organizations. So if you appeal to the causes that they're interested in, they'll be willing to give you money. So you want to look at your prospects, as far as age, income, tax status. And again, you can get information from the US Census data. You can get information from the website that I just gave you. But again, it's really important for you to let people know what is the purpose of your organization? How is their donation going to help you? But if you don't ask, people will not realize that you're looking for help. So you saw from the way that people donate that a donation page is critical. So online revenue is up 23% a year. You got more than half are willing to donate on a regular basis, and monthly giving revenue as a result is up 40%. So you want to create a donation page, and you also want to have a call to action donate on all of your pages, but you do want a separate donation page that focuses on what your cause is, and you want to think about emotional appeal. For instance, I have a client who puts together resources for kids who are going off to school. And so her donation page says, if you donate $5, it can support filling a backpack with pencils and pens and pads. If you donate $20, it also pays for a backpack. A certain amount will pay for an iPad. So that encourages people to donate specific amounts of money. And also remember that a picture is worth 1,000 words, as they say. And if you've watched TV and looked at some of the ads of these poor little children in Africa, you understand how emotional those kinds of pictures can be and how they appeal to people's emotions. So you want to think about, how can I use some nice graphics to show people about my nonprofit cause? So things that you want to be careful about: you want to make sure that your process is not too slow. If you use videos on your website, for instance, make sure that they're not posted on your website, but are linked to a repository such as YouTube. That way they run a lot faster and they don't clog up your website. You don't want the process of donating to be really complicated. And if the links don't work, people are just going to leave and not provide any funding. So don't force your donor to create an account up front in order to make a donation. Give them the opportunity to choose a donation, and then you will get their information on the backside, because they will have to give you your credit card or PayPal or any account to give you a payment. So you'll get the information you need, but just don't ask for it up front. Keep it concise. Make sure it's consistent with your branding. Again, tell people how the money's going to be used so they know that what they donate is going to make a difference. Make sure that everything's labeled and obviously optimized for mobiles, because everybody's using their phone these days. And then you also want to be able to send them a thank you immediately, and again, reiterate how the money is going to be used. So you want to test your page, make sure it works on a lot of different platforms, and also make sure that it's secure because you're collecting financial data. So one thing that you need to have if you're going to ask people to donate, you have to have budget projections up to date. Especially if you're going to large donors and they say, well, how much money do you need? You need to be able to tell them. So also in light of the pandemic, how has that changed your nonprofit? Does it make a difference to your case for need? So donor recruitment and fundraising, again, has to be a major high priority if you want to keep your nonprofit going and growing. So what is your statement of need? It is really why are you asking for money? Why do you exist? And why is the money necessary to support your organization? So you want to tell a story, again, trying to reach people's emotional connection. And you want, again, tell the donor what's their benefit if they donate. You will be providing like backpacks to kids who are starting school and don't have any place to carry their books and so forth. What do we expect from their investment? If you can not only tell people what their money is going to be used for, but if you can't do it immediately, maybe you have a newsletter that you send out to donors that tells them how their money was used. Because when you go back next year and say, here's how we used the money this year, and in order to continue this program, we need you to give us maybe a bit more next year. So again, people want to know that what they donate is making a difference. So what is in your case statement? It's really almost like a mini business plan, because it talks about your mission and your vision. Why are you unique? Why are you different? How long have you been in business? Why did you start your business? What programs do you have? What do you do? And how is that impacting on the people who are involved in your programs? What are your financial needs? How are the funds being used? And then what can you do to help? Maybe you can't fund a whole project, but you can fund a specific piece of it that will help to make that project successful. One approach, of course, is crowdfunding. Usually it's ideal for specific causes. If you have, and if you go, of course, on the crowdfunding sites, you see that people are generally asking funds for a very specific cause. So you come up with your goal. Again, you need to tell a compelling story, how you're going to use the funds, and again, add pictures and videos if they are going to get people more engaged and more interested. One of the difficulties with crowdfunding, if you don't have a very general appeal, it's difficult to raise funds. But if you have a good network where you can send people emails encouraging them to participate, reminding them by text, sharing it on social media, that will increase the potential for people to donate. Once you accept the donations, again, you want to thank the donors and withdraw your funds. It's pretty straightforward. Most of these sites are primarily for nonprofits. They are free to set up. They do generally take a small piece of the donation for their operations. So if you don't get a donation, it doesn't cost you anything. But of course, you'd like to get as many donations as possible. And, 2 to 3% is not a whole lot to give up. Also think about legacy programs. Again, a lot of your donors are baby boomers, older people. If they don't have families, they might be willing to leave money to a cause that they believe in. So again, that's one thing you can think about. If you aren't able to give a lot right now, maybe you want to give a little bit each month, but think about leaving money to our organization in your will. So another thing you want to do if you start building your donor base is to have some sort of fundraising software. And here are some options that are fairly good programs. Some of them are free, some of them are none of them is hugely expensive, at least when you start out. So now let's talk about grants. The thing about grants for most small nonprofits, if you're starting out, these are the kinds of programs that you probably are going to be looking for. Corporate giving programs, some grant from private foundations. There are federal nonprofit grant programs, but they're very limited. And then there are some state and municipal funded resources and that sort of thing. So let's talk a little bit about these. Corporate giving programs. A lot of corporations have a matching gift program. So you should ask any donor who is employed by a company, do you have matching funds from your company? Because that makes a big difference. That can easily double your donation. Okay, if you look at the statistics, $4 to $10 billion in matching gifts are not claimed every year. So that's a huge number. 65% of Fortune 500 companies offer matching gifts. Over 18 million people work for companies with matching gift programs and so forth. So the donations are 2 to 3 billion, and twice that or more is lost because people don't take advantage of it. So that's one thing to make sure when you have new donors, say, if you have matching, please let us know and we will contact your company. Okay, and here are some of the large companies that provide matching gifts. So you might want to take a look at that. Grant giving private foundations. Many privately found foundations exist, and these are usually set up by families that have some money and who, for instance, may have had a family member suffering from a particular disease or type of problem, and they will support small nonprofits that are starting that are going to support that particular issue. And so they make grants. They don't run charitable activities, but they do give grants. So that's one area that you may want to look at, because they tend to be more regional and local and want to support local and regional nonprofits. So the kind of thing they generally, if you're putting together a request, you need a cover letter of inquiry that asks, tells a little bit about your organization. You want to talk about your case statement, your mission, and again, the purpose of your organization. And also, again, budgets, financial needs to complete the programs that you're starting. So most are online applications. Again, a lot of them are very specific in what causes they'll support. So if you go to their website and you look at what they are willing to support, if your organization falls within that purview, then it's worthwhile exploring the opportunity to apply for a grant. And again, there's a huge number of private corporations that provide funding to small nonprofits. So again, there's a whole list. So federal nonprofits are very competitive and very few, but they're certainly worth looking at. And if you are a fairly robust nonprofit, in other words, if you've been in business for a few years and you're doing well, you might find some government funding. Again, they like to have you be in business for at least 3 years. And also you need to have a good financial management program, because they require some very detailed reporting. Now, some of the areas within the federal government where you might be able to find some funding for small nonprofits are these, the national endowments. And even on the state, you might find the National Endowment for the Humanities at the state level. And if you go to candid.org, they have databases of all the philanthropic foundations. You can look at what type of nonprofits do they support and how to apply. They also have lists of what type of organizations they have supported in the past. So again, candid.org is a phenomenal resource if you're a nonprofit. You can go to the SBA website. They'll just refer you to grants.gov. If you go to grants.gov, that is a repository for grant opportunities for 26 different agencies within the federal government. So you can apply through that website. You can download the request. And the thing about the federal government, which is different usually from private foundations, is that private foundations will support maybe education, disadvantaged youth, community development. And if you have something that falls within that general rubric, then they might be willing to fund you. On the other hand, if you're looking at federal grants, it's usually the government is saying, this is the program we want developed. If you have the capability of doing that, then you can apply, but they have defined what the program is. They're not giving you a lot of latitude. They're simply saying, here's the program we want. If you have the ability to mount that program, then apply. So that's not just a subtle difference, it's a very significant difference. And here are some links to various websites. The thing about both local and state websites and grant opportunities is they come and go. So you need to check like once a month and see if there's anything on the city website or the county website, because they will get an influx of money for a particular type of grant program. But when the money's gone, they end it. So depending on when they receive it and how many requests they get, it may be available for a short period of time. So some helpful links for women. These are websites that you can go and look. Cabbage actually gives a list of a number of different grants that might be available to women. So a few bonus tips. If you're just starting out, I recommend that you might talk to an established nonprofit that's similar to yours, not in your area where you would be competitive with them, but maybe if you're in Cleveland, you might think about Columbus or Cincinnati or some other city where you wouldn't be a direct competition. So if you talk to them and find out, how did they get their initial funding? What kind of problems did they have? A lot of people also, you might want to know, where did you get your board members? Because board recruitment is a challenge for many people. But it's great if you can get some inside information from somebody who's already gone through it. So don't wait till you completed all your paperwork and so forth. These days, it takes anywhere from 6 months to a year or so to get the IRS approval, just because it seems during the pandemic, they slowed down dramatically and they haven't come back up to speed. But what happens is when you put in an application, even though it may take 6 months or a year, once it's approved, you can retroactively say to people that going back to the date that you submitted your application, any money donated after that time is tax deductible. So that's an advantage. And again, as you're starting your organization and you're reaching out into your community, that's a good time to start building and networking to find people, especially donors and board members, who are going to support your cause. Practice your grant writing skills. Grant writing is important. You really want to think about applying to many different sources, because you don't want to get dependent on a single grant, because generally grant giving organizations do not want to support you over a long period of time. They want to know if they give you money for a year or 2 years, that at the end of that time, you will have developed your donor network enough that you won't need their funding anymore. Candid not only has a lot of information about foundations and tips, they also have grant writing classes and other information about nonprofits. So it's a great resource for anybody who's starting a nonprofit. We do have grant writing basics coming up in later this month on the 25th. So if you're interested in grants, that might be one to look at. And now let me try to answer your questions. Obviously, as I have mentioned, the slide deck and the link to the recording is going to be sent out. It's true. Candid is a great resource, again, for anything nonprofits. Okay, let's see what we have here. There's no handout. Again, you're going to get a copy of the slides and a link to the recording. So you have all the information that I have here. And if you put the slides in the slideshow mode, all those links are going to be viable. So, okay, so that pretty much covers everything. I hope that you found it useful. Again, I understand that being a small nonprofit and trying to get started and finding funding is really a challenge. But start with your board members. Ask your board members to donate, or alternatively, go to their network and ask their network to donate, and try to encourage your board members to be ambassadors for your nonprofit. They should go out and represent you. They should talk about your purpose. They should get people interested in supporting you. So building a good board is critical to starting a successful nonprofit. So don't think that your brother, your cousin, and your aunt are the best board members unless they have skills that can help you, like finance, marketing, administrative skills, anything like that that can actually contribute to your organization and help you grow. So think hard about, when you recruit your board members, what can they do and what are they willing to do to help me be successful? So thank you so much for attending. Let me see. Can I charge insurance for a nonprofit? Yes, if you provide a service that would normally be covered by insurance, you can go through the process of becoming a provider and being able to bill that insurance. And obviously a lot of nonprofits do. Hospitals are nonprofits, they bill insurance. So yes, definitely you can. You can use your house as a residential treatment facility. Can I sell my house to a nonprofit? Yes, you probably can if the nonprofit can afford to purchase it. What often works better is to lease it to the nonprofit, because if you sell it to the nonprofit and they don't do well, they can't sell the house. They have to donate it to another nonprofit. So for a nonprofit, instead of purchasing a house, it's better to have an individual purchase the house and lease it to the nonprofit. So, that's something you ought to think about. Okay, I think I've gotten all the questions. So, so thank you for attending. Make sure to sign up for a SCORE mentor if you're starting a nonprofit. It's very helpful to work with somebody who has some knowledge and skills in that area. So enjoy the rest of your afternoon. And we'll see you at the next